So that's something I didn't learn until I got into scouting, was the profiling. In the beginning of my scouting career, I would never draft turn in a shortstop high in to be drafted highly unless he was an elite hitter. And I would see these college hitters, college shortstops getting drafted second, third round, hitting 220 with not a lot of home runs, and I could not figure it out. And that's when I learned from some of the old timers and some of the guys I worked for how the profiling worked for different positions. And everyone knows the 5 tools of hitting for power, throwing, fielding, and running, but those are assessed differently and ranked differently by the position. So for a shortstop, if you're going to rank him by the 5 tools in profiling, the first tool you're going to look for is going to be defense, defensive ability, then his arm, and then most likely his hitting ability, then running, power, or power running, whichever order you put them in. So when you look at it in that regard, it puts the player in the position into a totally different light. When you see a guy like Alex Rodriguez on TV, I mean, that's not even fair, because that guy's off the charts. You're not looking for. It's great if your shortstop can hit 350 with 40 home runs, but as you're coming up through this and you get into the profiling, and the reason I bring it up is, from a player standpoint, that's what's most important to your development. So if you're a catcher, the most important thing to me is going to be defense, and then the next is going to be throwing. After that, it's going to be hitting, then whether you can hit for power, and then your run speed. Now, years ago, the arm may have been before the defense, but now we're in the major leagues where teams don't steal as much. In college, they don't steal as much. From dealing with college coaches, they will take a good receiver and sacrifice a little bit in that arm. Now, would I encourage a catcher to spend time trying to get faster? You're always going to try to improve your tools and your abilities, but there's only so many hours in a day, and that catcher's time is best spent improving his defense, improving his throwing. No one's ever going to not take a catcher because he doesn't run fast. And you can find those online also as far as the different positions. For your center fielder, you're going to want defense first and then speed, because speed and defense go hand in hand. Then you're going to get into your hitting, then you're hitting for power, then you're throwing, knowing that your weakest armed outfielder is usually in center field. But because he has that speed, he can cover a lot more ground. He can gain ground, say on a ground ball, so he's going to be a lot closer in most instances when he goes to make that throw. But that's where, because you will hear a lot of people talk about that if a player doesn't have a strong enough arm, or, even in the major leagues, if a guy has a real below average arm, but in center field, you can kind of get away with it. When you get into first base and left field, that's hitting and hitting for power, or power hitting and hitting. And that's where the guys go that can hit, that don't have a position. So when I see an amateur player that is playing left field or first base, sometimes he's playing there because he isn't fast, so he doesn't fit one of the other spots. He doesn't have a good arm, and he's kind of put over there because that's the only place he can play. But to move forward, if you're going to move through the ranks as a left fielder or a first baseman, you're going to have to really hit with power. The only, it was interesting, is when I worked for the Expos as a National League club, because you didn't have a DH, that second base position was always up for debate. Were you going to have a strong defender who could run really fast and sacrifice on the hit tool? I remember with the Expos, we had Jose Vidro, who could hit. He almost won a batting title, could hit for some power, was not very good defensively, didn't run very fast. But knowing that in the National League you don't have a designated hitter, teams may look for more offense out of second base, but that's a position that could go either way. But I think as a player that wants to develop, when you realize what position you are and knowing what tools matter the most, I think it can help in your self-assessment, and more importantly, can help in your development as to what you put your time and resources into. I would think most players are going to find themselves in the position first, for the most part, and usually a coach will decide. You'll see a lot of players, a lot of your premium recruits are center fielders and shortstops, or they may play both positions. So you give the coach options. I think if you develop your tools effectively, perfect example is the two-way player. I get a lot of questions from players and parents about, I'm a position player, but I'm also a pitcher. What do I do? And I always tell them, approach it like you're two different people. Train the pitcher, train the hitter, continue to do both, and then again, deal with the feedback. Do all the coaches like you as a pitcher? Do all of them like you more as a hitter? Do they like you as a combination to do both? You can, that's a common question. Can I do both in college? Yes, if you happen to be good enough pitching, good enough hitting. Most guys are lucky to be able to be good enough at one, so to find someone to do both doesn't happen that often, but it certainly can if you're good enough. If you're good enough, you absolutely can. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please leave us a like. If you have a question for me that you'd like answered, please leave it in the comment section below. If you want to stay up to date on Scoutbook or any future content, please follow or subscribe below. Thanks for watching.